In this lesson, I'm going to show you some advanced accessibility features that you can access right from within the Wix editor. Let's dive straight in. First, go to Settings. Then go down to Accessibility Wizard. Now, we're going to do a whole lesson on the Accessibility Wizard in a little while, so don't worry about that just for now. First, I want you to go to the More Actions button, and then go to Advanced Accessibility Settings. Now you'll see four options here: Visual Indicators, Skip to Main Content, Automatic DOM Order, and Accessibility Dev Tools. First, we're going to talk about Visual Indicators and Skip to Main Content. Both of these options are turned on by default. And if yours are turned off, you should 100% turn them back on because they're so helpful for accessibility. Let me show you why. If I go to Preview, the editor is going to show me a preview of what my site will look like when I publish it. So some people use keyboards to navigate a website. The only thing is, how do you know where you are on a website when you're just using a keyboard and not a mouse? Well, that's what the visual indicators are for. So if I press Tab, it's going to take me through my website, and it's going to highlight all the interactive elements, like links and buttons and menu items. That's what that little blue square is. Now, if I want to move backwards, I can press Shift-Tab, and it's going to move back through all my options. Now, the first thing that you should come to is Skip to Main Content, and that is awesome. We've already added it for you in the Wix editor, but a lot of sites don't even have this option. When you press the return key, it's going to take you into the main content of the website. Now, for my website, that's probably not that big a deal. There's only about 5 or 6 options that you have to tab through. But for other websites, like say a government website, there could be up to 50 different menu options before you ever even reach the main content. So this is really, really useful. But let's go back to our other options. We've also got an option to turn off automatic DOM order. Well, what's DOM order, you ask? So DOM stands for Document Object Model. It's basically the tree structure of all of your content as it looks within HTML. So at the moment, when I look at my site, I see certain elements coming before other elements. And that's called the visual order of the elements. But that's not necessarily the order that the DOM will read them in, because that's going to go by whatever order you wrote them into your HTML code. So let's say you put in Order Online, this button here, before you put in Henry's Bakery. Well, the DOM order is going to tell all the machine readers to read Order Online before they read Henry's Bakery. And that's a problem for accessibility, because if someone's trying to navigate with an assistive technology, it's going to dart them all around the page to the wrong places. So at Wix, we've created automatic DOM order, which does actually reorder your DOM order in the order of the visual placement of the elements on your screen. And that's awesome. However, there are a few reasons why you might want to turn it off. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Just go to that toggle switch and turn it off. Now, to reorder your DOM, go to Tools and Layers. Now you can just drag and drop all the elements of your site into the right order. However, I'm going to finish this with a caveat. If you don't know what you're doing with DOM order, absolutely don't do this. Because every time you add a new element, you're going to have to manually reorder it. First of all, that's really hard to keep track of, and if there's nothing unconventional about your site, there's really no benefit to it. However, if you know what you're doing and you know why you would need to turn off DOM order, now you know. For me, I'm just going to turn it back on. And finally, we have Accessibility Dev Tools. So these expose advanced accessibility tools right within the editor. Generally, they're turned off by default. But when you do turn them on by turning this toggle switch, you're going to get some advanced accessibility options for custom elements. So let me show you. If I go to this strip and right click, I now have the option of accessibility. So I can click that and it gives me the option to add an attribute. So what is an attribute? Well, there are many and they differ depending on what element you've clicked on. So in this case, I can add an ARIA label, tab index, ARIA live, a role, and a bunch of other ARIA elements as well. Another caveat. If you don't know what an ARIA attribute is, the general consensus is don't use them. Because although ARIA attributes are really important for accessibility, we've already added ARIA attributes to all of the default elements in Wix. But if you want to add a custom one, you really need to know what you're doing, because bad ARIA is worse than no ARIA at all. It can really frustrate screen reader users. You also get the option to add a tab index and a few other things, so that can be really useful. Now, if you do want to learn more about how to add ARIA attributes and tab index to custom elements in the editor, I've left a link to the full Help Center article in the Resources tab, so you can feel free to check that out. And now there's only one more thing that we have to talk about, and that is accessibility overlay toolbars. I'm not going to tell you not to use them. They can be a nice addition to a website. You probably know what they are already, and you just don't know that you know what they are. If you've ever been to a website and you've seen a little icon in the top right or the top left, maybe the bottom right as well, of a person in a wheelchair, or maybe just a person standing like this, that's probably an accessibility toolbar. And it's something that site developers add so that users can maybe enlarge the text or have the site read the text back to them. The thing is, if you build your website with accessibility in mind, and it is already accessible, you don't need the toolbar. But if your website's inaccessible, a toolbar is definitely not going to fix it. So feel free to add one if you want, but just remember that what we've already done here, if you've been following along, means that you probably don't need it. And that's the end of our advanced options lesson. In the next lesson, I'm going to show you how to use the accessibility wizard to audit your site. See you there.